So you're an entrepreneur. You want to make a difference to the people and the planets as well as your own profits. The question is, how many people know about your ideas or the big idea? How many people know about your vision, your purpose? How many people know who you really are? If you truly want to be influential, one of the routes you may wish to consider is writing a book. Now, today I have with me a thought leader. She's also an entrepreneur. She has her own publishing house as well as a team that helps coach new authors as well as veteran authors to get their ideas across to the world through books. Her name is Mindy Gibbins-Klein, and you're watching the Harun Rabbani Show. Mindy, thank you so much for joining the Harun Rabbani Show. Now, we've known each other for so long, and I've seen you just skyrocket. But what's interesting is, and we'll come back to that more later, but what's interesting is how you've stayed focused. Now, a lot of us entrepreneurs, we've got the shiny object syndrome. Yeah. And because you've stayed focused, you've expanded from working on your own, and then you're the founder of the book Midwife, which is a global brand. What's kept you so focused in these years?
I've had to refocus. I think we just need to remember to focus, because I think left to our own devices, those of us who are interested in shiny new things and entrepreneurship in general and risk takers, we are at risk of going here, there, and everywhere. And so it takes some effort, and you have to bring yourself back to the core. I've had a lot of personal development training, as have you. That's kind of where we met. And I think you learn those strategies to bring yourself back to the key questions and your values. But you have to do it over and over again. And I've had to do it many, many times.
Why the heck should somebody just write another book? Because hasn't it all been done?
You know, if any of the listeners or viewers are thinking, well, has it been done? I would say no. Your particular slant on it, your story, your take, your insights, your book has not been done. I mean, think about it. There are millions of books, and yet people are still buying the new ones. And that's because they're still looking for the answers. And maybe people will always be looking for the answers. You know, do we need another weight loss book? No. Have we already got 16 on the shelf? Yes. And yet we buy the next one because we're just hoping that that next one gives the answer we're looking for, right?
Now your authors tend to be, from my understanding, entrepreneurs. Am I correct? And if so, why specifically entrepreneurs?
So entrepreneur, that's what I call them. Some people don't see themselves as entrepreneurs. So I'd rather just say someone who runs their own business, because some people are like, oh, that's a big word. So they may love the term or not. Basically, it's somebody who's taken a risk and who has left employment or may still be employed, but has started up something on the side. And yeah, it's the risk element. It's the starting something that I admire and I want to support. So I work with a lot of different kinds of people. We have a small stable of life stories authors at Panoma Press, our publishing company, and we do publish life stories. We mostly publish business and self-help books written by what we're calling entrepreneurs. And I want to reward those people because it is tough, as you know, and I know. When you start something, you don't always get the rewards, or not immediately, and you have the ups and downs, and basically the buck stops with you. So I want to be one of the people who is supporting and celebrating the entrepreneur.
Do you believe every business owner ought to write their book?
Oh, I don't like ought to, because that's a thinly veiled should. But we believe that if people want to, they should be allowed to, encouraged, given guidance, help, advice, support, kick up the backside, whatever they need. Because the thing is, if people feel frustrated because they want to achieve something, not just books, a lot of people want to start a business and they don't. So you and I can appreciate what that takes. Many people want to, I don't know, move to another country or meet their perfect partner or move house or do something big, run a marathon, and they don't do it. So I think when you have that goal, when you have the kernel of the goal, you need to fan the fire, and you need people around you who do that. So I am a big believer in entrepreneurs sharing their stories. I would never tell someone they ought to or they should, but if they want to, and it's other things stopping them, then absolutely I can get right behind them, work alongside them, encourage, and all those other fun things that I said. And my team and I are there to help people do what they want to do, not necessarily should. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. So is there, take a different tack then, is there somebody who shouldn't write a book? I mean, when I say shouldn't, I mean,
No.
you look at it and you think, no, this is not for you.
See, I don't try to play God. I don't judge. I mean, we all make judgments, but I really aim not to judge a person or their idea. About 15 years ago, I was quoted as saying, every book deserves to be written. And that was interesting because I kind of, well, let's just say I had a little debate with some agents and publishers out there. I didn't run a publishing company then. We started that a few years later. And then I actually made a bolder statement, every book deserves to be written and published. I still really believe that. I think, that we have a level playing field now in terms of different ways to publish. I'm not saying that book has to be bought or read or liked, but I do believe that we should let the public decide, and that, there's something a bit wrong with the gatekeeper mentality that existed for a long time. Some people will still argue with me and say, no, some books shouldn't be published. Okay, sorry, there are some where if it's about hatred, if it's rude and crude, pornography, about racial tension, I'm not going to support that. But I might even say that in a world of free speech, maybe they should be allowed to publish it. Although I have mixed feelings about that. But most of the time, people are doubting whether their book deserves to be written and published. Every book deserves to be written and published, and we're there to help people who are a bit underconfident.
For a budding entrepreneur, budding author, I should say, what's the biggest blockage you find that stops them? Is it strategic? Is it their time? What is it?
So yeah, time is a bit of a red herring because we can all say we're too busy. In fact, our most successful authors are the busiest entrepreneurs you could ever meet because they say, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. And these guys and gals do an amazing job spinning multiple plates. So time, I would just take that right off the table. And I would ask any of our listeners or viewers to think about whether we always find time for those things that are important. I'm not going to answer that, but you know what my feeling is. So, but the other things, the strategic, that you've hit something really important, Harun, because a lot of people don't have a strategy. They have a feeling they'd love to write a book. And as I say, we try to fan the flames here. We try to see if there's something that's worthwhile to them, whether they're going to do it. And if they decide they're going to do it, we're right there with them. The strategy, we've won many, many awards at the Book Midwife for our strategies and systems and methodology. And the reason for that is that most people don't have any. So most people will be, oh, I'm inspired. And they go and they write 17 pages and then they kind of, it peters out. And then the self-doubt creeps in, and then time gets in the way, and then whatever. And so it's because they haven't got a plan or a strategy that works. They don't know, they don't have a formula for what the book could and should be, what it can do, how to create it, how long it should be, what style, what tone, what content. Sorry, I get very excited because I have these conversations every single day with people who know they want to write a book and people who think they want to write a book. And it's the same thing. If the passion is strong enough, then really they should follow through with that. I said should, yeah. But but if it's for passion, and if it's,
most of our audiences aren't necessarily NLP practitioners.
I know, but yeah, I think if it's self-doubt or lack of knowledge of how it should turn out that is stopping people, or getting distracted, or any number of other things, like practical things, then there's a way to get the goal. So that, I think that's the thing that stops most people, is they don't know what to do, where to start. We do. I don't know if you're aware, because we've started a video campaign at the Book Midwife, and we're actually banging on about the fact that people should get help earlier than they think. So a lot of people don't understand the midwife metaphor. So the book midwife, it's a metaphor. I'm not a real midwife. But if someone has a book inside, we want to pull it out. But unfortunately, if you think about the midwife in real life, she, usually it's a she, comes in right at the end after you've, been through the 9 months of labor and all the, swollen ankles and the whole bit. And then right at the end, it's like, the last bit. So people think they have to write the book and then come to us. And guess what? It doesn't get written. So unfortunately, we're stuck with that brand. It is a global trademark. We've done a lot with it. And we're also an IVF clinic because we're there at conception. And you don't find many midwives who are there in the bed with you or in the bedroom. But that's the thing. People that say, oh, let me outline it and then come to you. Oh, no. We do all this together. And we keep saying book, but more and more we're involved in the thought leadership strategy, and becoming a thoughtful leader involves much more than a book. But the book is a really good representation of your thought leadership. So that's why I feel people will do better if they have a book at the hub of it all. But they can get help right from the beginning. I had a lady who came a couple of weeks ago, and I convinced her that in the initial session, we would figure it all out. And within 90 minutes, she would have clarity. And she said, but I have so little clarity, and I have 6 different ideas. I said, don't worry. Please trust the process. Trust yourself. Trust me. We sat, nice, relaxed environment. And it was unbelievable. Within 90 minutes, woo! And she could write 6 books, but we focused in on one, because writing 6 at the same time is a recipe for disaster. And she's making great progress. I'm very excited. So that's the goal, is, to help people along right from the very beginning. Sorry, there's a long answer, but we're excited about what we do.
That's absolutely perfect, because what I'm hearing, translating it in my simple mind, this is why I'm good at interviewing scientists and people like that. I can take everything they say and put it back and say, so what you're saying is, what people lack in regarding writing their book, getting started, is primarily they don't have a big enough why, purpose, passion and purpose, and they don't have the confidence. And
well, here's how we explain that. They don't have the confidence, get this, because they don't have clarity. It's not, confidence doesn't just come, because as much as I try to coach somebody, until they're clear, they won't feel confident, because they know deep down that they either have got a shaky foundation, or they haven't pinned themselves down. When they have the clarity, it builds their confidence. And so we are able to help with the clarity. So it's the step before the confidence. And we have tricks for confidence as well. But really, it kind of just flows once you have clarity.
Brilliant. I mean, actually, that's absolutely perfectly put, because what I was going to say is a lot of people think they want confidence, but actually it's not confidence they need. It's that clarity and that commitment, and then getting on with it. It's like, I'm a martial artist. I'm out of practice now, British kickboxing champion. I didn't start as a British kickboxing champion. I started off absolutely crap. And for 18 months, I used to get a crap beaten out of me. But then with practice and clarity, focus, ended up developing the confidence. So, and it applies here. So you mentioned a couple of terms. The one that I want to really hone in on is thought leader. What the heck is a thought leader?
Well, I didn't create that term, but in the 1990s in academia, they started talking about thought leadership. And they're talking about someone leading with their thinking. That's the simplest way to describe it. But unfortunately, with it being academia, it was all about your peers and mentors, and it was all about, publishing papers with lots of references to other people's work. And so I started unpicking that in 2008, so 10 years now, and started writing and speaking about thought leadership from my point of view, which is the fact that your peers and mentors, that's great if you have their support and approval and endorsements. But what really matters is your market, your clients, your prospects, the people who will buy from you. Nowadays, funny enough, the term influencer has come in, and for me, it's pretty much the same as thought leader. I think they're interchangeable. Somebody might argue with me, but that's really what we were saying. And I wish I'd thought of the term influencer and been the first one to use it, because then I would have been a thought leader in that. It doesn't matter, because my work is all around, again, getting under the skin of it and making sure that people have the how-to. Being a thought leader isn't something that's left to chance. It's not, waiting for Harvard Business Review to say, you have this designation, you are a thought leader. He is not, she is not. It's not about that. It's about this level playing field that I was talking about before, to be seen as somebody who's saying something new and interesting, original, something a bit different, maybe disruptive. That is the only stuff that is getting people's attention nowadays. I'm sure you and the viewers and listeners would agree, because we don't have time for the same old, boring, regurgitated content. And there's too much of that out there, as I'm sure you'd agree. So what we're still looking for, the human being is looking for something new and different and exciting. And it is getting harder and harder to find the needle in this ever-increasing haystack. And yet, that's my passion, is really pushing people and helping them to learn to push themselves and push their thinking, and not just settling for something, not accepting some kind of message or content that isn't good enough. And again, these are subjective terms, but this is my passion. So a thought leader, the bar is getting raised higher and higher and higher. In fact, we've got the new term thoughtful leader, which is like thought leadership 2.0, maybe 3.0, because I'm someone who pushes myself, as you know, you are too. And I do believe that people really could do with pushing themselves a bit more and not settling. So that's where that comes from.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Love it. I think just touching on the word influencer, the challenge of that term is that it's like anyone and everybody seems to be jumping on that bandwagon. And to me, influence means, this is for our listeners and our viewers, influence means helping somebody change their paradigm of thinking from point A to point B. It's actually getting them to change. Now, that could be very easily mixed up with inspiration. So inspiration is, for me, means to breathe within, to inspire, to be uplifted. So you can inspire somebody or you can motivate somebody. Now, none of them necessarily influence them to change.
Well, do you know what, Harun? That's not the part of the equation where I get involved at all, because really how people react to our content, our message, and ourselves as people, that we can't control. What we can control is what we put out there into the market, is how we challenge ourselves to come up with and disseminate our best ideas. And if you look in the mirror, I don't mean anybody, if one looks in the mirror, one will know if they're really pushing themselves and coming out with something exciting or not. If you're honest and truthful about it. Now, how people respond, how many, whether they are influenced, that's the bit we can't control. So what my feeling is, just let go of that. Just stop worrying about who you're influencing, how many, what your clout score is, because if you really do put your best self and your best stuff out there, then people vote with their feet. The market will decide. And true influence is decided by the market. I'll say it again and again and again. So no matter how much advertising and no matter how much pushing of a mediocre message, people won't buy it unless it really is speaking to them. So we can't control, that's the total irony, we can't control whether we are influencing someone else or not. Therefore, just let go of that and put your best stuff out there, and the true influencers will rise to the top.
What fascinating angle to look at it, because actually that's exactly, so I grew up in medical sales. When I say grew up in amongst curry first, then medical sales. And in the medical sales world, you could demonstrate as much as you like and build relationships as much as you like. But the bottom line is all of those things are within your control. You could not control the outcome of the sales. In other words, you can't make people buy stuff. That very much depends on really putting yourself out there, which is exactly what you're saying. So just moving on from that particular area, there's different types of publishing. Well, you and I have had discussions about this. Not just you and I, but lots of us have a debate about it. Self-publishing or publishing company? Which one?
It really depends on what somebody's trying to achieve. And I'm not trying to skirt the question. It's just that if you go with any kind of publisher, you'll have a partner in the process. You'll have someone else or an entity who is amplifying what you do, adding to what you do, and hopefully getting you into more markets, extending your reach. We happen to do a lot. So we've spoken about bookstores and international deals and all sorts of things where we're making a heck of a ruckus in the US at the moment. And we like that because that's something that our authors wouldn't be able to do by themselves. The kind of PR that we get, the kind of, we've started putting more and more into advertising and promotion. We started out very small with small budgets, but as we grow, we're plowing more and more of that into marketing and promotions. That's what a good publisher does. So that my bias is towards having some kind of publishing partner. We are speaking to entrepreneurs and business owners. And my personal feeling is that if they self-publish, not only do they risk making mistakes and having the book look not quite right, getting a few things wrong, but maybe they do a really great job, but they will have spent hours and hours and hours of their valuable time, and time is money when you run a business, well, for anybody, and they will have spent that time and they'll never get that back, and they've missed out on all those opportunities. So I'm not a big fan of self-publishing, and I know some people have really made it big, but they've plowed hundreds of hours into it, and I would get any serious entrepreneur to think about whether they would be willing to plow hours and hours and hours into marketing a book that maybe nets them $2 to $5 a piece, as opposed to letting the book do its job, working with a true publishing partner and doing your core work, which is probably speaking, training, consulting, etc. That's my bias.
Great answer. I have self-published before, and I can attest to the amount of bloody time it takes. And the thing was, I also gave it to a whole bunch of friends who are various editors to some degree and proofreaders. And after, I think it was about 6 or 7 different, proofreaders going through it and changing, etc., there's still mistakes in it, lots of it. And that's frustrating because these guys are very good at what they do. So, and I think as an influencer, you've always got to use the term roti. Roti means it's a bread in food, but it also stands for return on time invested. So if I'll give my example, if I'm in front of a CEO, talking to them, helping them to become influential, then that one meeting may lead to something which might generate me anything between 8 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand in 1 hour. It's really that much, obviously, as in I won't earn that money in 1 hour, but from a 1 hour meeting, why the heck am I not paying someone to do my proofreading or putting my book together?
Well, you know why? And people may recognize themselves in this description coming up, and I'm not trying to be rude, but some people are self-professed control freaks. So they don't trust, they want to control and do everything themselves. That's related to the perfectionist personality. And I personally don't see too many of them at the top of organizations or leading successful brands. There are a few, but I just think it's not smart. So they're either control freaks, or they are thinking that they can save money, but they've forgotten that time is money, and they may end up wasting more money by the mistakes they make, some false economies and things like that. I don't want to get into the detail of it, but we do, you said, why would someone do it? Those are the 2 main reasons that we hear. Or, this is very sad, that they don't know about companies like ours. They know about the big guys, and they know that, they can send a proposal in, and maybe 6 months from now, they'll get their nice rejection slip. And they don't understand that there is a middle ground, a good independent publisher who partners with that author, and that's worth exploring. So we spend a lot of time talking about books and publishing, and in the big picture of being a thought leader or a thoughtful leader, I think this speaks volumes, no pun intended, but you will have somebody who is going to judge the book by the cover, and they're going to judge the author by the book and the quality of the book. Those are sort of universal laws. Don't judge the book by the cover. I'm sorry, but people do. And they will you, the potential influencer, by the quality of the book. Therefore, it would be prudent to get help and make sure it's the best it can be. That's just my opinion.
Why do so many books that are published by by mainstream publishers, why do they fail to gain the leverage? Like, say, for example, you get people like J.K. Rowling, she publishes the book and that's it, instantly to the top. But why do most of them fail? That's what I've heard. They said they'll sell, what, a couple of hundred in their lifetime.
You're going to hate me, but I don't accept words like fail, because I have one author who published a serious book on organization development. It's called It's Behavior Stupid, in case anybody wants to check it out. It is a brilliant book. It looks the part. There's a hardcover edition with the jacket. We did a fine job with that. I'm very, very, very proud of it. It's not a mega bestseller, and Steve, the author, would admit that. However, one copy of that book ended up in the hands of a VP at a major bank who Steve had been hoping to speak with. And that guy called Steve, the author, and said, "I'm sorry I haven't returned your calls for 18 months. I've just read your book. We should talk." So they talked. They had a meeting. And by the end of that meeting, they had put together a major deal with Steve's business worth 7 figures. So does it matter how many books he sold? I don't think so, not in that case. Would you call Steve a failure? I don't. I don't like this whole trend of bestseller, because it means different things. It may mean that you sold more books than anyone else in that 15-minute period. It may mean that you're a bestseller in a micro niche of a category where there are no other books. It may mean all sorts of things, and it may mean that you've sold lots of books. But so what? Because the author will earn, and this really depends, but if the bigger the publisher, the less they earn per book. We know this. They may earn 50 cents or 50p per book. You're gonna have a hard time getting that ROTI or ROI or any other ROs, because it's tough. So that's not really where we focus on numbers of books sold and things like that. Yes, there are strategies, and we have about 40 or 50 of our authors who've, aimed at the bestseller and hit it. We probably have 100 authors who've been in their top 10. We can do all these things, that we focus on what's more important, which is how to leverage your content, leverage the book, turn it into something that is going to mean something to your core business, which, as I say, is usually around consulting, coaching, speaking for most of our authors.
As somebody who's who's about to write the next book, part of me has been, how can I say, brainwashed or conditioned into thinking in terms of, right, it's got to be a bestseller. I'm not talking about Amazon bestseller, by the way. I don't even consider them as a point of interest. This is just me being biased. But I'm talking about New York Times, Sunday Times bestseller. But what you're really saying is, actually, if you're writing to influence your tribe, influence the people who are your clients and prospective clients, question is, are you reaching them? And actually, that is more important to me than reaching anybody else. It's to actually reach the people I'm actually aiming to help. That's the quality versus quantity. And yes, you can have both. And you may have some of the, at different times, you might have, peaks in sales. We have one author, I don't know if you know Alison Edgar, she wrote Secrets of Successful Sales. Don't say that after a drink or two. And she has hit the top 10 and the top 3 at least 7 or 8 times since her book launched about 6 weeks ago. And so, you can keep kind of bouncing into the bestseller list. So what? It's really about the conversations that she's having, and an amazing review that I saw on Amazon today, totally unsolicited. This guy said, I don't even know her, but which is great. It's all very well for your friends to write your reviews. But it was phenomenal. She's making an impact. She's having influence. And that is really what she wants to do, help people to be better at sales and sell more of whatever they're selling. So, that makes me happy. I really don't care how many times she hits the bestseller list. Sorry, Alison, if you're watching, but great. It's an ego thing. Sorry, but that's what I think. Other than J.K. Rowling, that I keep alluding to, can people make money on books? Sure. So Chris Anderson, in his book, The Long Tail, he wrote
a lot about, the long tail being a lot of products selling a little bit, and which is encouraging because most of us will sell a little bit of whatever we do. And then it's like a curve, if you look at the top 1%, in fact, it's not even 1%. At the time in 2004, when I first took the stats, it was 10 books that sold 1 million copies in a year. Now think about it. Those books, the author will have had something like maybe 10 cents per book by the time they paid their agent fee and their, from the royalty, paid their tax. So that's $100,000. Sorry, I don't mean to go, some people would love that. But then to repeat that year after year, there were 10 out of the 1 million+ books, 10 different titles hit that kind of number. And then he went on to show how many sold 50,000 or I think 100,000, whatever it was. It went down very rapidly, and there were only about 1,000 different books that sold 50,000 copies that year. So maybe the numbers have shifted a bit, but the principle is the same. The principle is, you're going to have those, I cannot remember what you call those breakaway, there's a word for it.
Outliers?
Excuse me? The kind of outlier. I'm so annoyed because there's a book called The Curve, or I'm sure it's called The Curve. Anyway, this is you get a very few, it's very rare. And you can hit that, but if you focus on hitting that and you miss, you'll feel like a failure. And then why not just put the book out there, give it a good push, work with good people, get on with your core business. And if the book is as good as it needs to be, it will take off in whatever way it's meant to. I know it's starting to sound a bit woo-woo, but I know you and I like that stuff. So it'll take off in the way that it's meant to. And we force these things all the time. I believe that we really should be thoughtful about our processes, be thoughtful about our content, put the right amount and the right kind of thought into what we're putting out there and how it reflects on us, and then let go and let the universe take care of the rest.
Mainstream publishers, how much marketing effort do they really put into all their authors? Because I mean, they have lots of authors, from the brand new author who's got maybe a lot of likes on Facebook to somebody who's like, bestseller again and again. Do they actually put a marketing effort? I'm talking about across the board. And then, please tell us more about yourself.
I can't answer for any of these individual publishers. I can just tell you what I've seen. And that is when I go to a book fair. So we just had London Book Fair last week. And I see a lot of the publishers' stands. I don't spend a lot of time there because I'm busy having my own meetings. But I just take a look. And they don't have all the books represented in person, as it were. Well, neither do we at this point. We now have too many. However, are they still pushing that backlist title? They call it backlist, which I think is a bit insulting. We don't use that term. We treat all of our authors the same. We give every single book a really good launch, and we give it a good push, and then we give all of the books equal attention. Now, some books will take off, as I've been saying. So, the market, the universe, whatever, will determine that some books are meant to fly. And we'll get behind those maybe a little bit more, but you know who we really get behind? We get behind those authors who are busy engaging with us and their tribe on social media and elsewhere. That's who we're going to get behind. So the one who writes their book and says, okay, I'm done. What have you done for me lately? And we get that. We tell them what we've done for them lately, but that it's really going to have minimal impact unless they meet us halfway. And then we get some authors who are brilliant. They tag us. They, use the right hashtags. They're active. They thank their tribe when they do reviews and when they engage on social media. And, we give them an extra boost. Because I've always said, here's one of my little tricks. I will retweet anything that I think is worth retweeting. Okay, that's not a secret. Lots of people do that. But if you read between the lines, what am I saying? I'm saying, if an author of mine tweets something relevant, whether they tag me or not, if I see it, I'm going to retweet it, because it goes back to what I was saying about rewarding the risk takers and rewarding the people who take action. I hope I'm not sounding too harsh, and well, too bad if I am, because it's a reality. In no part of our society can you just do one thing and then sit back and say, okay, you know, and be passive. I can't think of any area where you can be passive these days. So think about it. You know, listeners, viewers, if you are bringing out a book or a product or services or doing anything, challenge yourself to do something for that product to boost the profile, yours and its profile, every single week or every day if you can. It takes 1 second to retweet, or maybe 30 seconds to post a tweet or something on Facebook or Instagram. Really, this is not a lot to ask. So it's kind of like, if we go back to the book midwife metaphor, if you think that, you know, we've nurtured these babies, it's like leaving the baby on the church steps. Okay, I'm done. Next, you know, let me get pregnant again. Sorry, it's crude, but you know, it's not the thing to do. And if you do that to your book, it will treat you the same way, you know, very, very negligent.
How important is somebody's social media following in their, as part of the equation of becoming a successful author?
These days, very important. Now, it depends on the book. So we brought a book out 3 days ago, I think it is, called How to Be a Super Ager. Now, super ager isn't a term we created, but it's about being an older person, as in 70s and 80s. We've been nice and said starting in your 50s and 60s, but that's when you should start thinking about it. However, the people who are really engaging with this book are in their 70s. Do they have a massive social media profile? Usually they don't. They're doing amazing things in terms of spreading the word by the old-fashioned means, word of mouth, in the church. We've heard of all sorts of stories, and it's humbling actually, because you know, I go on and on about, you know, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, but there are other types of books that are just not going to get that kind of profile. So think about the book, think about your audience, you know, your avatar, think about where those people hang out. I think people need to be active nowadays. I think social media has become an equal partner to traditional media, and maybe it's even overtaken in some cases where people pay more attention and trust it more than traditional media. I just think, you know, the more you can do to raise your profile and that of your products and services and books, the better.
Okay, so I'm an entrepreneur. I've not written a book. I'm pretending I haven't written a book. I haven't written a book. I'm inspired by what I've heard. What are the core criteria I've got to consider before deciding to approach you and say, hey, Mindy, I want to write a book?
Brilliant. Thank you for that, because it allows me to bring back some of the points we were discussing earlier. So the key thing, as you picked up on, is the level of motivation, the reason why. I don't even care what it is, but I can guarantee that if somebody is writing a book because their mentor told them they should, or because they see it's a trendy thing, or they feel any kind of pressure whatsoever, and they don't feel that real motivation, you know, where you can feel it in your body, it's going to be hard work. They might do it, but it's going to be hard. And maybe the book won't be as good as it could be if the passion was injected into it. So that's the first thing. Just test for the motivation. I don't want to, I was going to generalize and say older people start thinking about their legacy, what they're leaving behind, but that's not necessarily only for older people. Other people think about building profile and credibility, but that's for everybody as well. So it doesn't matter what reason you have, whatever you have, it should be strong. The second thing is it related to what you know and what you do? Because I get a lot of people who want to write a book about some subject and they're going to research it, and that's a very academic point of view. The best books, well, I shouldn't say the best books, but the ones that we tend to work with here at the Book Midwife and Panoma Press and Real Thought Leaders are the ones where it's integral to the company, the brand, whatever. So for example, that book is totally in line with what that entrepreneur or influencer is doing and saying. And so therefore it can lead to sales, it can back up sales, it can be part of a package. It can, you know, if you get somebody who's a dentist, but they write about their trek in Nepal, that's nice, that's great. It's gonna be hard to marry the two. It's not impossible, but they're missing out. But if they really, really, really want to write about their trekking in Nepal, I'm happy to speak to anybody. It's just better when it's integrated and it's part of that big picture, like I said before, at the hub of a good thought leadership strategy. And that it's if they don't know what that strategy is, we can help with that as well. But so that's the second thing is part of some strategy, but related to what they know and what they do. And then the third thing is really, do they appreciate that working with someone like the book midwife? We happen to have a 90-day process. So idea to finished manuscript in 90 days guaranteed. Is that something that will add value? For some people, that adds pressure. 90 days, they want to take a year. Great, they don't fit into our programs. Well, they do fit into our online courses and things. But the point about the book midwife is to make sure that they do it fast and do it well. They should end up with a better result than if they did a DIY, do it yourself. So ask yourself that question. Am I bringing the content? Could I use help with the scoping, the framework, the structure, the outline, the process, making sure that it ends up the best book it can be, the right length, the right style, tone, content, and everything else? Do I want help with that? That's what we do. If not, there's a place for DIY in every industry. And, sometimes that's the thing to do. But if somebody's looking for a partner right from the beginning, ideally, then they can give us a call. No obligation. I'm always happy to have this kind of chat. Look, we've only been chatting for just over half an hour, and you've already got my whole philosophy. I won't say anything different if somebody calls, but we'll hone in on that project and see if we can add value. And if not, I'll say so.
How good does somebody's quality of writing have to be before they can consider themselves an author? Someone would say, "Oh, I'm no good at it."
Well, first of all, you're going to love me. This is another one of those phrases and words that we won't talk about. Quality is a very subjective thing. You may have seen books that are really kind of strange, and I've seen a best-selling book that had single sentences, really short, punchy. I didn't like the style, for example. I've seen books that were written as if it were the person when they were 7 years old. I've seen highbrow books written with words that I don't know. I would have to look up, and I don't feel like looking up. Quality is not a term we use because a lot of people don't know how they can write if they've never written a full-length book. They don't know till they do it. So I believe in good editing and proofreading. And if that's what someone's worried about, my grammar, and hey, there are programs you can even run it through a spell check. Just don't trust the grammar check. We have teams of people who can make it better and close to perfect. So really, they can let go of that. That's kind of one of the things that they learn through doing it, and will encourage them to keep trusting themselves, if that makes any sense.
How do people get hold of you?
Book midwife, one word. Well, it's 2 words. I mean, in fact, it's 3 words, the book midwife. but the one word on Twitter, one word on .com, so bookmidwife.com, book midwife, into Google, whatever, because I've tried to follow my own advice and be prolific on social media, traditional media, and elsewhere. And hopefully they can find a few thousand links to connect to. I'm always happy to have a chat. That's the thing I want to leave people with. Some people are like, oh, you have to fill in this questionnaire and you have to jump through all these hoops. And I like having a chat, as you've seen, as you know. So it's never a wasted phone call, unless somebody's rude. I have no tolerance for anybody, telling me my process is wrong or something like that. We do what we do. And if people are humble enough to say, let's discuss, let's hear how you could maybe help me do my book faster and better, we'll have a chat.
Is there any one single message you want to share with our thought leaders, our influencers, to help, to either encourage them or inspire them in the world of writing?
Yes, please think again, and then think again. Think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you're putting out there, and how it's going to reflect on you. If you are trying to build profile and reputation and everything that goes with that, as we say, you can't control it all. However, you can put the right kind of thought and the right amount of thought into what you're putting out there, and give it and yourself the best possible chance.
Thank you very much for joining my show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for watching the Harun Rabbani Show. If this has been of value to you, make sure you share this episode with at least 3 other people. And if you're serious about writing your book, then get in touch with Mindy as soon as possible. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.